Oh, yes.
Welcome, everybody. We are going to begin our 12th session of Ecclesiastes. We are on chapter 6 of the book, and we're in the section of the book. It's about to shift as we go into chapter 7. But chapter 6 really continues on the chapters that come before, talking about the accumulation of wealth and where do we find happiness, all those ideas. But one of the comments that we had last week, and which certainly seems to be true about this part of Kohelet, is we find the word for many a lot, rav, a lot of this and a lot of that. And when you have a lot of wealth or a lot of this, and part of it may be because Ecclesiastes is a book of extremes. It's taking us to the extreme to point out truths about life. When you're in the middle, it's hard to see the truth. But when you take the extreme, then you really get to see a powerful lesson about the effect of materialism or of maybe over-accumulation of wealth and not putting our focus on other things, or even just to look at, well, what endures in this world. And so far we haven't found very much that endures in Kohelet's view, enduring. But it's a beautiful meditation on life and on what's valid. And I think it also pushes us to ask those questions ourselves in our own lives. So we are going to continue with chapter 6 of Ecclesiastes. We're going to read all of chapter 6 and hopefully start chapter 7, which has shifts a little bit in tone and has some of Ecclesiastes may be one of the books that has some of the most well-known quotes to make its way through Western civilization and literature and other arts to us, and chapter 7 has a few of those. So let's read through chapter 6. There's a lot of interesting there, especially if one looks at it more closely. Alan, would you follow tradition, even though tradition may be futility of futilities, but let's follow tradition anyway.
Okay, here we go. Full of wind. There is an evil I have observed under the sun, and a grave one it is for man, that God sometimes grants a man riches, property, and wealth, so that he does not want for anything his appetite may crave. But God does not permit him to enjoy it. Instead, a stranger will enjoy it. That is futility and a grievous ill. Even if a man should beget 100 children and live many years, no matter how many the days of his years may come to, if his gullet is not sated through his wealth, I say, the stillbirth, though it was not even accorded a burial, is more fortunate than he. Though it comes into futility and departs into darkness, and its very name is covered with darkness. Though it has never seen or experienced the sun, it is better off than he. Yes, even if the other lived 1,000 years twice over, but never had his fill of enjoyment. For are not both of them bound for the same place? All of man's earning is for the sake of his mouth, yet his gullet is not sated. What advantage then has the wise man over the fool? What advantage has the pauper who knows how to get on in life? Is the feasting of the eyes more important than the pursuit of desire? That too is futility and pursuit of wind. Whatever happens, it was designated long ago, and it was known that it would happen. As for man, he cannot contend with what is stronger than he. Often much talk means much futility. How does it benefit a man? Who can possibly know what is best for a man to do in life, the few days of his fleeting life? For who can tell him what the future holds for him under the sun?
Any thoughts or comments just from hearing it once through?
It's a very light, cheery chapter. I think that's like the I don't know, the most dark one that we've read so far.
Yeah.
It is quite dark. It is quite dark. I think we're reading it more closely. See that it's not just a repetition in some ways than the others. Let's see if what we can squeeze out of it. It's dark, but maybe it also pushes us through its darkness into the light. The beautiful New Mexico light. Okay. There is an evil I have observed under the sun, and a grave one it is for man. So again, we have this repetition of the word for grave here is rabbah. It means great. It's again this word for great, for a lot, rav, which keeps coming back again and again. So we are really we're looking at an extreme where it's kind of like we've climbed up the mountain, the philosophic mountain, and we're standing on the edge of mortality or on the edge of meaning, and we're very high up, and we're looking in the extreme terms, and that's having an impact on how we see everything. The God sometimes grants a man riches, property, and wealth, so that he does not want anything his appetite may crave. God does not permit him to enjoy it. Instead, a stranger will enjoy it, and that is futility and a grievous ill.
Is it really God who doesn't permit him to enjoy it? Seems like it's elements in the world that prevents people from enjoying it.
You know,
why does he blame it on God, I guess is what I'm asking.
So it does say God in it, but let me change the translation. I'm curious to see if anybody else has a different translation, because here, the God sometimes grants a man riches, property, and wealth. In the Hebrew, it's osher, unichasim, v'kavod, v'chavod. Chavod can mean plenty, but kavod is also, kavod can also mean honor. So you can get property, riches, and honor. So it's kind of like all the things that we maybe run after, but which aren't the most important things. So that and your soul does, you don't lack anything, which all you desire, your appetite may crave. So you don't lack anything you desire. So we're in the realm of desire. V'lo yashlitenu, God does not permit him, but in some ways it's not really permit him. God does not give him the power. In some ways it's more. God does not give him the power to eat from it. I mean, it's almost as if maybe we go searching for power and for honor, but it's like it's never ending, the pursuit of it. You never can quite taste it because you're always trying to get more. That could be one way maybe of looking at it. You're always trying to get more of the honor, more of the property, or more of the wealth. And God or the universe rarely gives us the ability to really enjoy the object of our craving, or maybe it's just the nature of a craving itself, or of a desire itself. It's never enough. You think you're going to satiate it, but it always leads you to more. But instead, a stranger will enjoy it. Why does he say that? Is that just because of how bad it is? That here you are, you build something up, and the stranger enjoys it instead of you. Norma, what do you, who do you think, what do you mean? So it's not God does not permit him to enjoy it? Do you think it's oneself who does not permit one to enjoy it?
Partially that, but partially things that happen to us in life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, it's like your little daughter Shelva asked you, why did God, create the pandemic?
Yeah.
But I don't really think he did create the, I guess it's how you look at it, right?
Yeah. Mhm. No, I think that's a really good point, and a lot of the rabbis pick up on it, and it's all about God's, how much is coming from us and how much is coming from our free will. I mean, where is free will in all of this, right? That's a question. Here we are. You go about your life, you try and gain success and all the things you do, but if there's God not allowing you to do it, then do you really have free will, or what's going on here?
Well, how about you have, this makes me think of World War II, when so many people were displaced from their homes and they were taken over by other people. So here, you've worked all your life, you create a home,
Yes.
and everything, and then all of a sudden you're gone and someone else takes over, and you're left with nothing.
Beautiful, right?
That's a great point.
Really, you never know. You never know what's going to happen, right? You never know what will happen to your possessions, or you get thrown out of a company and someone else takes your place, all your labors, and the economy tanks, and there's the Theranos case, right? This woman who built this whole empire out of vanity of vanities, nothingness, came crashing down. That is futility and a grievous ill. Why grievous ill? Why does he add that? Just because it's painful, or?
It could be emotional,
It doesn't-
not physical. It could be emotional, that your soul hurts and feels so sad.
I think this is a very difficult passage. Inserting the stranger will enjoy it. And then a grievous ill.
I'm not sure what the grievous ill is. Is it that God does not permit one to enjoy it? Because isn't that in itself a grievous ill, to not enjoy the blessings that the Lord has given you? Or is the ill that you do all this work and a stranger will enjoy it? Or is it that you can't enjoy what you've been given? I'm open to interpretation, but it does seem to suggest a lack of free will on human part.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What is the stranger, adding the stranger part? Why is that so striking?
It takes it out of oneself, because so far, a lot of this conversation, if you want to take it as a conversation, has been between Koheleth and the reader, right? It's the word and the reader, and it's very individualized, right? There are no children, there are no spouses. Okay, we talk about the relationship with the Lord, but mostly this conversation has been focused on one person, right? The one audience that's reading this. It's not about the people, it's not about the tribe, it's about an individual trying to figure out his place in the world under the sky to the Lord. And that the stranger is a third person. I mean, where does the stranger come from?
Yeah.
It cuts that, I want to say, well, it's not Martin Buber, but it's a one-on-one conversation going on, and the stranger is like, no, a third wheel.
No, I think that's good. It is Buber. It's not not somebody with who you have a close relationships who will enjoy it, because at least you could say, well, if I can't enjoy it, at least it's my child or my friend, or but it's a stranger, someone who's coming into your home and taking over your enjoying what should be rightfully yours. I mean, that gets our backup, doesn't it?
Where does the whole idea of like that we were strangers and that you should welcome the stranger?
Yes.
How does that fit in here?
Exodus.
Well, it's throughout the whole Torah, right? You shall, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt, you shall welcome the stranger, and so on and so on. Well, it's, welcoming a stranger is a very difficult thing, I think, because we're as human beings, we're wired to be, more connected to people who are like us, with whom we feel a sense of fellowship. So, it's easy to say, go help your fellow. I mean, it's not as easy as saying go help your child or go help this, but then go help a stranger, someone who's not even like you. That's difficult. So it's a very powerful commandment that the Torah is saying. So, you go beyond even that boundary and welcome the stranger, even though they appear different than you and they are different than you. So here it's flipped on some level, and it's playing on that same very human thing of, well, it's not even your fellow, it's not even the person, your clan member who's going to enjoy it. It's a stranger, someone who's but maybe that commandment wants us to transcend this situation and say, well, you should be happy a stranger, even if it's a stranger, is enjoying your wealth, because
That's what I was going to say. It's how you look at it, from a negative perspective or a positive perspective. Maybe the person couldn't enjoy it for whatever reason, but somebody else comes along who can enjoy it. It doesn't necessarily have to be. I mean, I liked what Morris said, and that's the negative. If somebody takes away something that you really didn't want to give away, but maybe this person just really couldn't enjoy it, but the next person can, even if it's not your kin.
The art scroll Kohelet says that the stranger, we're interpreting it as, I guess, from our modern view of a stranger, somebody who you don't know, but they're interpreting it, and with some commentary, that the person who was rich and didn't get to enjoy it, his life was cut short. And either it was he died without an heir, so somebody else, a stranger literally, got to enjoy the estate, or his widow remarried and the second husband got to enjoy
Hey, that's
the
good.
money. The other thing is
that was at the back of my mind.
Good.
the other thing is that the grievous ill wasn't a grievous ill from the viewpoint of the rich person who, in this this interpretation, died, but it's from the viewpoint of the bystander or the person observing what's going on.
Well, because we do have this idea that everything of judgment, and things happen according to some kind of cosmic ledger, even if we don't understand it. But I wonder how that works into all of this. Interesting. Thanks for sharing that. But let's move on. This part's a little bit. The next part is an image which is.
It's worse.
Yeah, right.
Even if a man should beget 100 children and live many years, right? Solomon probably had a lot of children because he had a lot of wives. No matter how many days of his years may come to, if his gullet is not sated through his wealth, I say, the stillbirth, though it was not even accorded a burial, is more fortunate than he, though it comes into futility and departs into darkness, and its very name is covered with darkness. Though it has never seen or experienced the sun, is better off than he. Not a comfortable image for us in our modern days. But it's right. The Jewish tradition is that a stillbirth is not given, doesn't have a funeral, though in our days that's some degree changing. And obviously in those days there were a lot more of those before modern medicine. But it's the image that the Kohelet is using. Like saying better not to have been born at all is basically what he's saying, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty dark, that you're better off never to have been born. That's pretty dark.
He said that in the last chapter too.
He did. And here he illustrates it even more powerfully with this image, doesn't he? But he's also saying maybe he's talking about the trials and tribulations of our world, right? That if that's all you experience, that this world is a world of trial and tribulation, and if that's all you experience, you can have the feeling, well, what was the purpose of it, right? It's the first noble truth of Buddhism, right? There is suffering in the world.
And certainly there is suffering, but there's also joy and beauty. And to say you're better off never having the chance to experience that. Wow.
Well, maybe he's hinting at something else that we don't know about. I'm not sure what it might be. Maybe he's hinting at some great metaphysical truth about being born, about being here, having the experience, something that he's hinting at with respect to that we don't know. It's hard to take him very seriously with this. I mean, on the surface, because he flies in the face of most of our sort of natural form of reality, where we're connected to things that happen here under the sun. But he's saying essentially that you're better off having never been born. It's interesting.
Well, and it's interesting that the connector, I mean, if we go back to, well, what is a condition in which case it would have been better not to be born? Velo tisba mina tova, v'nafsho lo tisba mina tova. And if it says his gullet, which is a very poetic interpretation, and his soul or his breath is not sated from all the goodness. So if you're not sated, if you don't feel, if you go through life always feeling a lack, and you don't feel satiated, then that's a terrible way of going through life.
And he refers to the stillbirth as an it.
Yeah. Well, so what's the image of the stillbirth? I mean, he could have said it's better not to be born at all, but the stillbirth is such a horrible image. But it's almost being born, right?
Right,
but it's
hasn't its breath, hasn't taken the breath of life, right?
Beautiful. Yeah, it's having experienced life. So maybe if you just walk around not feeling satiated by anything, it's as if you haven't taken that breath of life.
Like the old adage, what you don't know can't hurt you.
I would like to push back, as they say, a little bit on this. You could tell me, I know there are cases where the rabbis say, I mean the ancient rabbis, better not to have been born than to have done certain things. I can't pull out the instances, but there's certainly more than one. Better not to have been born, and you think, wow, that's quite a thing. Now they're drawing, I guess, on this tradition as well, and it must have been an established sort of trope even in late temple times, since Jesus says the same thing, and better not to have been born, that the one who will betray the Lord, better, it must needs be, but better that he not be born. But this is the way things are. So you have that, the idea that it's not an analytical category or a strictly philosophical rigor applied, but there's a power to saying, better that you just didn't participate in this world than that you've done this. That's is that at all clear? Maybe it isn't.
Well, there's another statement that comes to mind from Phil's statement, and that is, it is said that anybody who inquires as to what is above him, what is below him, what is in front of him, and what is behind him, better off that he should not have been born. And that's sort of in the genre that you're talking about. So there's something about not being born. There's something about not coming here for an experience that somehow you could take a pass at and be in a better spot.
Well, in some ways, and that's an early Mishnah, but in some ways, their view of the afterlife was even more stark than ours, because as the rabbinic view of the afterlife develops, and even more to where we are right now, we tend to think of being in the light or something wonderful before and after, but they had more of a sense of just nothingness. So to them there was less of a sense of an afterlife in some kind of ways. It's even more of a stark message of not coming into being or into life at all. But it tells you about the preciousness of real life in some sense, doesn't it? Or of grasping life, of the opportunity of this life. If we're able to take it in a way that gives us that meaning and the feeling of being full and satiated. I mean, though it comes into futility and departs into darkness, and its very name is covered with darkness. That's a very powerful verse. It's talking about the stillbirth, but it's saying you're worse off than that. And that's quite an extreme statement.
But the thing is, maybe he's being serious. Maybe there's some metaphysical truth that he has in mind that he's trying to alert us to about this. We take it all as a very negative thing. Maybe there's, I don't know what that might be, but maybe he has in his mind the meaning of life in some eternal way, as he's talking about this.
Well, he's peeling off the layers of the things that we usually think. This is where meaning is found. This is where it is, and he's slowly peeling off all of that to try and get us to a place with pure existence and pure being, and see what's left, perhaps. Let's move forward. Yes, even if the other lived 1,000 years, I guess part of the same image, twice over, but never had his fill of enjoyment. For now, both of them bound for the same place, right? We're all going to the same place.
So he said that better the person should not have been born, but then he goes and gives him a bad stage in life also. But if he was born, he's not going to have a good time. It's not going to be fulfilling.
If you spend 2,000 years living, and 2,000 years, you never,
heaven forbid,
you never saw was it the 2,000-year-old man? Was that the?
Yeah, right.
Never had
made a movie about it. That was
you never had the goodness. You didn't experience the goodness. Then you're going to go to it. So does that mean it's a wasted life? If you haven't experienced so the big question is, well, what is the good? What is the tova? We keep going back to it again and again. What is? They're saying a fill of enjoyment.
This guy is a definition of depression.
Yeah.
The thing, I guess, that I'm bothered about is that if your fill of enjoyment or even of your life is solely determined by what is in your gullet, then what about the whole idea of people having a purpose in their life? How does that? I would think that that's more important.
Yeah. Well, I think he's saying, I mean, it's a difficult verse. The Hebrew is difficult to quite put together, and to know. But I guess all of man's labor is for his mouth, and his breath, his gullet is not satisfied. I mean, maybe it's saying that just that, that cycle of life where you're just working to live, working to live, working to live. If you're not awake, then if you're not, that's not enough. It doesn't fill you. It doesn't say, you're not satiate. If all you're doing is, what they call in French, in Paris, there's metro, boulot, dodo. So metro is the subway, boulot is work, and dodo is sleep. So if your whole life is, subway, work, sleep, subway, work, sleep, subway, work, sleep, then where's your life within all of that? What advantage then has man over the fool? And what advantage has the pauper who knows how to get on in life? This is also, these three verses are quite challenging, just to work out their meaning. What advantage then has a man over the fool? And what advantage has the pauper who knows to get on in life?
It seems like he's taking everything that we take for granted in our usual form of approaching life, and he's destroying it. And he's doing this for a purpose. We're not sure what the purpose is yet. He's not doing this. Nobody writes something like this merely to be malicious and depressing. I wouldn't think. But I think what he's doing is he's stripping, as the rabbi said, he's stripping away all of our common sense notions about what we're doing here, what life is about. Every one of them goes, and you're left with something else, which might be very, very strange. In fact, it might be unthinkable in the usual form of having all these common sense notions.
Well, it's interesting how many times, one gets a sense in general from biblical literature, what the words are that keep coming back. And the words are, as I was saying at the beginning, this Rav, this a lot, right? He's taking us to the edge with these big extreme statements about having so much wealth, by having 100 children, about being a stillborn. And then the other words come back are this yoter, which is advantage, or what's good, what's better, what is better, and this the word satiated has come up a lot, and the word life and the word Adam, a person, has come up a lot. So we're really having a very, even though it's quite specific, we're speaking in quite grand terms, really, and it's taking us somewhere. What advantage then has the man over the fool? What advantage has the pauper who knows how to get on in life? because in the end, we don't know where everything is going to go. That's the one kind of simple meaning of all of this. We don't know. We just don't know where life is going to take you. We just don't know what's going to happen. Everything is unknown. So all the wisdom might not always take us somewhere, and we're all going to the same place. So what is the purpose of it? So then, is the feasting of the eyes more important than the pursuit of desire? That too is futility in pursuit of wind. This is also a somewhat challenging verse just in the Hebrew translation. Is the feasting of the eyes more important than the pursuit of desire? I mean, we don't know if it's a question or if it's a statement, actually. That's one of the reasons it's challenging. It could be saying that the feasting of the eyes is better than the pursuit of desire. Better that there's a chase is better than even in the fulfillment. Someone like him, Solomon, who's had the opportunity to really fulfill all of the desires, and he's saying that could be the other. Wonder if Phil, you have that at all in your translation? But
is he translating tov as feasting? Tov mare as feasting of the eyes.
Tov mare enai means the mare enaim is what the eyes see. So the good that the eyes see is better than what you presume.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
But is it a question or is it a statement? Is the feasting of the eyes more important than the pursuit of wind, or is it saying what the eyes see more important than the pursuit of desire? I mean, it is talking about the senses on some level, and with what our eyes see and desire, perhaps. But he's saying even all of that, all of those, all the feasting of the eyes, all of it is pursuit of wind ultimately, because it's all empty. I mean, it's again, he's coming to it from an extreme position as King Solomon, who's able to fulfill all of it, but he's saying all of it on some level ultimately was not where meaning was found. His endless wealth, his thousands of wives, all of it, that's not where he in the end found the meaning that he was seeking, or what was really driving. I mean, the Levi Yitzchak Berdichev, one of the Hasidic masters, he says that where all of our desires, why do you never feel that they're completely fulfilled? Because really you think your desire is being interpreted through your senses, but really what you're desiring is for your soul to be filled. But you interpret it as pursuing every desire, he says, comes back to the desire of your soul to be one. So really it's only through making your soul experience unity that you actually are satiated. But you think that by pursuing all these things and this and that and the fame and the honor or the all these different things, you think that's what's going to make you fill that hole inside. But in the end, the only thing that will fill it is that feeling of oneness, because that's where it's all actually coming from, because there's a part of us that feels that we're disconnected, or we're not filled.
Would you agree that, Robert, that that verse in verse 9, you're asking about whether it's a question? I guess what it prompts that is that our JPS translation puts it in the form of a question, although sometimes there are things that are clearly, at least grammatically, in the form of questions that they present as positive, as affirmative statements. But here it's just not in the form of a question. And in light of what we were talking about the feasting of the eyes, do you think that might be supported by what Alter says? He translates it better what the eyes see than desire going round. That's that holech going
Yeah.
around. Of course, it's certainly puzzling, as you say, but he says the evident sense is that one is better off simply enjoying what one sees, let us say, a beautiful woman, than embarking on the dangerous and potentially frustrating path of trying to fulfill desire. I don't know if that's a personal statement, but it's a very interesting one. He might have said complicated path. He could have said a lot of things. But I thought that maybe
that's
that is
exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we might as well bring it out directly now. Yeah.
He's not he was same as I am. He's not interpreting it as a question, because in the Hebrew there's nothing to indicate the question.
Okay.
Does bring it into a question. He's saying it's a statement. The feasting in the eyes is better than the pursuit of it. I mean, so there's the example that he gives, which may be closer to what Kohelet means. But what comes to mind is even so the Sufis. They say that even the Sufis are the mystical strain of Islam, and they say that pursuing the beloved, pursuing God is even more rewarding and beautiful than finding the beloved. So that they find the yearning to be even more important and even more thrilling than the finding. So the Sufis have a concept of putting themselves always in the yearning. They find the yearning itself to be what gives the most meaning, even more so than and actually in a similar kind of idea they have in, I believe, one of the Eastern religions, where they say it's better to taste sugar than to be sugar. So that's instead of, if once you realize oneness, you become sugar. But when you've got separation and you're trying to pursue, so that pursuing of the senses also can be reflective of a spiritual truth as well. Okay. Whatever happens, it was designated long ago, or happened long ago, and it was known that it would happen. As for man, he cannot contend with what is stronger than he. What is stronger than he?
God.
Yeah.
God.
Mm-hmm. That's how the commentators see it, and it comes naturally from the first part of the sentence, because the first part of the sentence says it's all in God's hand anyway. It's all already been decided. So it's not like you're going to easily be able to change your fate, change what's already been designated. Is that how you read it?
I think it's I was looking at Alter on that. It's very puzzling to me. But he, as he says, he could be simply saying one more powerful. It could just be that he has a deeply conservative politics, and that means he's not going to overturn the existing order. And there's going to be somebody in the hierarchy above you. So there's that aspect, I think, and he makes it very, at least as I read it, if you correct me, he makes it very general. One more powerful. So is it not open to both views?
So it could be. It couldn't. The traditional commentators take it to God, but it could easily be talking about, as he has before, this idea of losing your place, right? When you're a king, everybody's always trying to take your place away from you, right? That you read the Book of Kings and you see that was just the case for the Israelite kings, or you don't any history of any place really, or any politician, where everybody's always trying to get a one up over you. You think that you're all powerful and everything is already you're set, but then how quickly it all can come tumbling down. So that could be one view, or the other view could be about the idea of, well, what's the use of everything is predetermined, and so you should just live your fate, and not try and resist your fate, somewhat of a fatalistic kind of approach. Though the Talmud, I mean, this is one of the big paradoxes, I think, of religion in general, which is the idea that we both have free will, but that also on some level things are preordained, which most traditions have some kind of version of it. I mean, we definitely believe in free will. That's the story of that's being a human being is, all of our Jewish philosophers believe we have free will, but then the Talmud says, the only free will we have is to have yirat shamayim, is to have awe of God. As in, you can't, nothing is, you have no free will. Any decision you make, the only free will you have is how you're going to approach it, right? How much awe of God, of the universe, how you're going to internally meet every challenge in your life, or every moment in your life. So we somehow we believe both of those to be true. On some level, ultimately, it's all written down, but yet we also have free will at the same time to determine from where we are. One could get into a very long philosophical discussion about that, but he seems to be saying whatever happens, it was designated long ago. It was known that it would happen, which is saying, you can't change your fate. And maybe in that sense, I don't think it makes much of a difference whether it's God who's deposing you, or if it's a human being who's opposing you, or it's God coming as a human being to depose you. And the prophets believed that, right? Even the later prophets of the First Temple times believed that God was in the Babylonians coming to destroy them. That God was working through the other peoples to say they no longer merited to have the temple that they had because of how they were treating each other and the state of the orphan and the widow and all of that. Okay, let's move forward. Often much talk means much futility. How does it benefit a man?
Well, he's talking about our discussion in a sense. He's saying that it's futile. I mean, he sort of closed every possible door. The last one was interesting, the notion that the door of even being master in your own house, so to speak, internally, it's closed because you're not the master there. So forget it. You don't know. My father used to say, you don't know your ass from a hole in the ground. Well, that's exactly what he's saying. He's saying, forget it. There's just no way you're going to squeeze any kind of meaning that's thinkable to you out of this life. And I think that's very optimistic, actually, because it opens a huge door of then what? Then what? What could it be?
Mm-hmm. If all of the
if every one of the common sense notions is dead, lying there, destroyed by this guy Solomon, then we've got to pick ourselves up and we've got to think on our own about this.
He's even telling us Jews to stop talking, which is a big.
That's right.
That's the last door.
About this,
last door to close. Last door to close. He's saying, I even want you to stop chattering away and see what's behind all of it. Well, there's something very powerful there, as you're saying, and I once gave a sermon about God's command to Abraham, where he says, go from everything go from your house, from your father's land to. This is a very long time ago. This sermon, I said, well, if it would have been in modern times, his mother would have said, well, Abe, don't come back, come back soon enough, and they would have started chattering. There's that sense of the starkness of the prophet of the Bible, who goes away, and that's not, we're such a communal religion and family religion, and we're so bound together. But maybe we lose some of what happens when we stop and we just go out into the kind of the silence, and we just go out away from everything and really try and experience the what's beyond all of it.
Rabbi, he says earlier here that it's all foretold, but then it says here, for who can tell him what the future holds for him under the sun? So on one hand, he's saying, well, okay, it's all figured out already. But who can really tell you what the future holds? So he's kind of saying two different things at the same time.
Not only is the future predestined, but nobody can tell you what that future is going to be. It's he's
Right.
closing another door. Let me just get to the Hebrew. Let's see. I mean, this is the question, right? This is the whole question of the whole book. Ki mi yodea ma tov le'adam b'chayim. Who can possibly know what is best for man in life, right? Who can possibly know? Maybe it's the who can tell you what's good for life. Mispar yemei chayav b'chayim, mispar yemei chayav hevlo. Yeah, in the fleeting days of the fleeting days are like a breath. Like his life is like a breath. Going back to the idea of Yasem Hitzel. This is a puzzling. It says, and they are made like a shadow, and they are as a shadow, or according to the shadow. And who can tell him what's afterwards? Nobody can tell you what's going to be after. I'm not sure if it means here, the future, or if it's meaning after you die. I think that's, I'm unsure what he's saying here. They're telling him, all of your days are it's futile, and who can tell you what is best out of the smallness of life. I mean, that's where the idea of an afterlife comes. That's where we ask, what is the afterlife? What happens after all of this? Because of how small our days are in this world, and for who can tell him what the future holds for him under the sun? Does the author have a different translation for that, Phil, or?
And I don't know why he says, who can tell man what will be after him, acharav, under the sun? It could be after him, and I don't. They have a reason, I'm sure. I just don't know what it is to sort of pad it out. The old King James says, "Who can tell a man what shall be after him under the sun?" The same, and it's simple and it's stark, and I think it's true, and I don't think it contradicts really on Morris's point. It may be that it's all foretold, but nobody's told us. It's written elsewhere, but we don't have Google doesn't get you there.
It can tell you everything else, but it can't tell you that.
That's all I have to say.
Unless if you really know how to Google properly, maybe you can. Who can possibly know what is best for a man to do in life? Well, that's the core meditation that we're going through, and maybe because of the starkness of this chapter, we've gone deeply into that idea of, well, if everything's taken away, what do we have? And this isn't where Kohelet is going today, but I think where much of our tradition, maybe other traditions, would go to several places. One is just to being, and in being is found infinite joy and infinite peace with whatever is just there in the moment. Since you can't go, the past doesn't matter, the future doesn't matter, so you should just be. There's also the more Kohelet's gone here to some degree, but just enjoy what you have. I guess that's similar. Enjoy what you have, and pray for the ability to enjoy what you have in your fleeting life. And maybe there's also a kind of, there's so much talk of mortality and of this world and and of the sun, but maybe there is a way of connecting to that which is beyond really the temporal nature, right? Where everything here is temporal. That's really maybe on some degree a summary of a lot of what he's talking about. Everything is temporal, and therefore nothing is certain and nothing is forever. So then that leads us to the meditation. Well, what then is best for man to do in life? So no answers, but only questions. A good Jewish place to end. And let's revisit next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Rabbi.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rabbi.
Everybody,
Stimulating conversation.
Thank you all. Good Shabbos.
Donna, thanks Phil, Judy, David and Bonnie.